I've invited a friend of mine this morning to prove to you that God does this kind of thing in real life today, not just to the mothers on the pages of scriptures, but God has been mending broken hearts since the world began. And he will continue to do so until Jesus Christ comes back in the flesh, just like he said he would. So this morning I want to introduce you all to Estera. And Estera and I have known each other, boy, for a long time. We used to be together at the Romanian church when I was in my 20s. And Estera was actually part of the children's choir I used to conduct there at the Romanian church. And I wanted for her to come and share a little bit about who she is and what she's gone through. So Estera, I'm so glad you were able to connect, and thanks for your willingness to share with us this morning.
Sure. Like Florian said, we've known each other probably, like just under 40 years, giving away our ages. And we reconnected, and he told me, he was a pastor of a church, and he would like for me to tell my story on this Sunday. And I apologize if I have emotions. I haven't spoken in public, but yet private, so to speak. And it's a first for me. So I'll just dive into it. I am a mother of 4. They range in age right now between 3 and 12. 3 girls, 1 boy. So congratulations to Andy and Rachel, and buckle up, guys. So last year, we just celebrated our wedding anniversary last week. It was our 13th. And last year for our 12th wedding anniversary, we were supposed to go out for lunch after our church service. It was on a Sunday. My mom kept the kids, and, we were getting ready. And that Sunday morning, I started shivering uncontrollably, which I don't get cold. I'm always hot. So that was something weird for me. So between the shivers and I was nauseous when I stood up, I had to lay down. I had low blood pressure and a high rapid heart rate. I managed to get changed and get in the car. And I, as my husband was pulling out of the driveway, said, no, I can't do this. I have to go back in and lay down. So I said, you go on ahead, you go on to church, and, I'm just going to go and rest. On his way to church, about 15, 20 minutes later, he called back and said, do you want me to come back home? And I said, it's up to you. I'm still shivering on the couch. So that was miracle number 1. He turned back. He said he had a feeling he needed to come back. And I'm glad he did. It turns out I ended up going to the ER a couple hours later because I had sepsis. That's an infection in the bloodstream. The reason for that was I had a tumor that was growing in my abdomen. That tumor was pressing against my left kidney's ureter, and it was causing it to close, which meant the toxins could not, drain from the kidney, and it was leaking back into my bloodstream. And after a barrage of tests, May 6th, I believe, I was told I had stage 4 rectal cancer. The tumor was growing inside my rectum, was almost completely blocking it. And then there was a tumor growing outside of my rectum about the size of a fist. So it's softball-ish size. And that was a devastating blow. I mean, I was 40 years old, about to celebrate, so supposed to celebrate my 12th wedding anniversary. I had a 2-year-old at that time, or 1.5-year-old. And I was told I had stage 4 cancer. For those of you that don't know, because that's one of the questions I asked, I didn't know. I said, how many stages of cancer are there? They said 4. That was the worst. Later on in my treatment, I was told by the surgeon that had it been 1990 and had I presented myself the way I did, I would have been told, go home, You have 3 months to live. So after a lot of praying, after a lot of fasting and talking about it, we got second opinions and decided to go ahead and do some chemotherapy and see what happens. And excuse me, it was really difficult the last year, since I had to have not just the treatment. Going through the treatments was one thing, but having the most difficult conversations with my children and preparing them at such a young and fragile age of why mom might die and, you know, leave them behind. Not something any mother would ever want to do. And just preparing them. And it was an opportunity not just to prepare them, but to let them know about Jesus and heaven, and to tell them, you know, about the great beyond and why we believe what we believe, because that's our future. And since then, I've had that. So I told you about my first miracle. My second miracle was throughout the treatment. I wasn't very nauseous. I didn't get very sick. I was weak a lot. But my second miracle came when I was done with my chemotherapy, 6 months of chemotherapy. And they did a bunch of tests at the end, a CAT scan, an MRI, a PET scan, and the tumor was gone. The big tumor that was about the size of a fist was gone. I had a colonoscopy, and they said the tumor inside was gone. They said, the GI doctor doing the colonoscopy, you know, said, I don't see anything. I don't, you know, if she never came in here the way she did 6 months ago, I would never have thought she had cancer. And my mom was there with me. She said, well, she had 6 months of chemotherapy. And the doctor said, this is not chemotherapy. I don't see this kind of healing with 6 months of chemotherapy. That was my second miracle. They did find evidence of little tumors in the rectal wall still, but the big stuff was gone. So I cling to that hope that, you know, it doesn't spread and it doesn't, you know, metastasize to liver, lungs. I didn't have that yet. And my third miracle happened when the doctors pushed surgery on me, and I was very uncomfortable with the thought of surgery. It was a huge surgery where they would have to have cut me open from sternum to pubis, open me up, resection a lot of my colon and innards, and take out what they could, and then I would have about an hour's worth of a warm chemotherapy bath. They told me I would probably feel better in about 3 months after that. And it was very difficult for me to accept that surgery because it seemed like everything was gone. It seemed like God had put his hand on me, and I didn't need, you know, a surgeon's hand. I didn't need any medication. I didn't need any drugs. It was God saying, I am Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. And the doctors pushed me for it, and eventually I said, okay, we'll do it. We'll do it. And I prayed to God and I said, Lord, if it's not your will for me to have this surgery, do something so that it doesn't happen. And it won't be coming from me. I don't know how in the world it could happen, because I was scheduled for surgery January 29th. I was on my way to the hospital, and I get a call from the surgeon saying that he and his colleagues reviewed my case the night before, and they think that there's a better course of action, that I do short-term radiation in order for them to have cleaner margins when they resection my colon, and to do that first and then the surgery. So I went in and I talked to him, and I said, I don't think I'm going to do the surgery if I don't get it done today. And surgeons are notorious for wanting to cut. And this surgeon changed his mind totally. He was like a different person from when I first, you know, met him and consulted with him. And he said, if you were my sister, I would say not to do the surgery today. I don't want to hear you don't want to do the surgery at all, but I will not do the surgery on you today. And I was telling Florin that for me, that moment was just like when the Israelites were coming out of Egypt and they were stuck in front of the Red Sea, and they had mountains on one side, desert all around them, the Egyptian army coming in from behind, and they're stuck, and they have a sea in front of them. And what did God do? He parted the waters. And that's what he did for me. He parted the waters. So from the end of January, I've been in monitor mode, and actually, Friday we have my first CT scan coming up to see how things are going and if anything's progressed, if things are the same. I feel fine. This is the most normal I felt in over a year. And I'm just so grateful that God has given me the grace to keep on living this long. And I needed to get to that point that day where God parted the waters for me to be okay with dying. And it's a very hard thing to say as a mom to 4 little kids, that you are now okay to die. And it makes you put life in perspective. It gives you permission to live. It gives you permission to have grace. Do I still yell at my kids? You bet I do. But it's a mother's job to yell. But I forgive myself. God gave me grace, and I have to give myself grace as well. And the only reason why I live the way I do is because, according to the doctors, my expiration date was last August. So it's now May of 2020. I'm still here. I feel fine. And if I have 3 months, if I have 3 years, if I have 30 years, I'm going to live it. Actually live it. Be in the moment. Be the best mom I can be the best wife I can be the best business analyst I can be, even though they do take advantage of my brilliant mind at work. I try and do my best because that's what God asks us to do. He says, do unto others as you would have done, so that's what I live by. You get frustrated, yes, but you have to live because we only get one shot at life. This weekend we were watching Jumanji, and they had 3 lives on their, we don't get a do-over. This is it. You got one chance, and the chance you've got, you have to invest for your eternity.
Amen. Amen. Esther, thank you for sharing your story. And boy, I hope you guys heard the heartbreak. I hope you guys heard thank you for sharing that heartbreak, by the way.